move over Mega Ampharos because Alolan Dugtrio is trying to become the most fabulous Pokemon in the entirety of Pokemon, and this is how to use Alolan Dugtrio. So it is going to be a ground steel typing. We don't see that typing too often, but pretty much it's just going to be a fighting ground, fire, and water weakness with a lot of resistances. So we have normal, flying, rock, bug, steel, psychic, dragon, and fairy on those resistances, and we also pick up 2 immunities, immune to poison from that steel, and immune to electric because of that ground, so it works out pretty well. Offensively, we do get a good amount of coverage, and we really don't have to worry about too much. That bug, grass, electric, fire, water, those will be the things that resist us, as well as steel, and then flying will be completely immune. But on top of that, we trade it for a lot of super effective hits. Ground is going to super effective what steel can't, and then we're also just going to get some good coverage overall. So the ground steel typing is very powerful. However, looking at Alolan Dugtrio stats compared to regular Dugtrio, we have a lot of crazy things to talk about because Dugtrio in its entirety for the 7th generation received a pretty solid buff, plus 20 to its attack. So it went from 80 attack to 100, and then Alolan Dugtrio just lost speed. That just kind of happened. So Alolan Dugtrio with that steel typing gained 10 on the defense and then lost 10 on the speed. So it just has worse stats overall. That with 35 on the hit points, you can't really expect to survive much of anything. However, it does have a lot of resistances from the steel typing, but it does give up that speed that Dugtrio really likes to have. Heading on over to Cerebi, we're going to be talking about both Alolan Dugtrio and normal Dugtrio. Mostly because normal Dugtrio is better. Did get a nice little update. That plus 22 attack does make it a lot more usable and puts it in some good favorable situations, but has a lot of advantages over the Alolan Dugtrio, so we're just going to try to compare them right here. Now, the biggest thing that regular Dugtrio has is the Arena Trap ability. The opponent cannot run or switch, and that is very powerful in a Pokemon battle. Flying-type Pokemon and Levitate are immune, however, but we trade that for the Tangling Hair ability. Lowers opponent's speed by 1 stage if they make physical contact with the Pokemon. So not all moves make physical contact, and Dugtrio, it's a frail Pokemon. It doesn't want to get hit at all. Now, we're not going to see many differences between the level up for the Alolan Dugtrio and the regular Dugtrio. Pretty much, Alolan gets stab on that Iron Head. That's kind of it. But the egg moves are where things are going to get pretty interesting, because we have Screech as an egg move for the Dugtrio, but we get Metal Sound instead for the Alolan Dugtrio. So it's harshly lowering defense versus harshly lowering special defense, and defense is just going to be better on the Dugtrio. Also, we can see that reversal is going to be only on the regular Dugtrio, and that has a very high damage potential right there, and then we'll at least see that Memento is learned by both, and Thrash is on the Alolan Dugtrio. So, interesting back and forth on the movesets right here. But now it's time to hop on over to Pokemon Showdown and talk about the Dugtrio and the Alolan Dugtrio. So, Alolan Dugtrio first. Pretty much, it's just standard coverage, and since it's frail, we have to run a Focus Sash, even though it has that little bit of a buff to its defenses. Pretty much, you want to go dual stab. You have Earthquake, Iron Head, Sucker Punch, because some things will outspeed you at this 110, and then a Tech move. Now, I just threw down Fissure here, but you can put in kind of anything. Stone Edge, one of the other moves that we talked about. Maybe the Metal Sound, if like you find an opportunity to lower the opponent's special defense, you know you're getting KO'd anyways, and you bring in a special attacker and try to force a switch or something. But that's kind of it. Like, Dugtrio plays very straightforward, and Alolan Dugtrio is going to be even more so with that you just hope you do enough damage. That Earthquake 2-hit KOs and you're faster. Iron Head 2-hit KOs. You might find coverage into super effective hits and a Sucker Punch, and you might choose a survival. And even with the Steel typing giving us extra durability, the Focus Sash makes us a 2-hit KO, and even resisted hits are going to be very easy 2-hit KOs on us, if not just an outright 1-hit KO on the most powerful and crazy of attacks. And then on the Alolan Dugtrio, really the only thing left would be the Life Orb, because we have more coverage than regular Dugtrio, so maybe getting that super effective Steel hit with a Life Orb boost is what we need to secure some KOs. Also, just extra Earthquake damage or something like that. Dugtrio does work pretty well in double battles where you can get a Sand Force behind it. Yeah, Sand Force, ground, rock, and steel type attacks doing 30% more damage with that Life Orb. With the Iron Head, you're still not finding neutral one-hit KOs, but you are putting down an impressive amount of damage. Does give up the Focus Sash, or you could just kind of go Focus Sash with this, and then make sure you get 2 very powerful hits down. That's kind of really all that you can do with the Alolan Dugtrio, and yeah, even in doubles, like, it's just a fast damage-ish support, but there's a lot of other Pokemon that can do that. Now, shifting our focus over to Dugtrio with its new and shiny 100 attack, it effectively does the same thing. It just puts out more damage, which is always a good thing. So we have Earthquake, Reversal, Stone Edge. Reversal is just really powerful as well. Focus Sash, like you switch in, you get blown up, or you just get blown up on a lead. You just get blown up as Dugtrio because you are that frail. And because of that, it means that your reversal is going to leave you at 1 hit points, and you're doing a 200 base power move, which is more than a stab neutral Earthquake. We have Stone Edge for the coverage, and then another random coverage move that you want to put here. Now, you could go with a Jolly Nature, but also if you just want to kind of guarantee taking as much damage as possible, you can run a Hasty Nature, or also a Naive Nature as well. Naive is going to cut down from that special defense, and then really we don't want to use up that other point, so we just put 4 points wherever, and this is going to make us extra frail for that reversal if we want to play with this crazy little bit of tech right here. And then even then, you probably don't even want like perfect hit point IVs, perfect defensive IVs. Now, there are those rare situations where it might be okay to have a Jolly Nature and maybe like the 4 points into hit points or something like that. Because if you are eating a not very powerful neutral hit or some kind of resisted hit for some reason, then that means if your Focus Sash breaks because of an entry hazard, you can still switch in Dugtrio at the right time and then maybe be able to survive a hit instead of just getting blown up all the time. So if your Focus Sash does fail you, it's okay to not be fully invested because you're going to be at low hit points at some point anyway. So looking at the options of moves that you can put in for this 4th move slot, we have Fissure again. We also have the Screech because, hey, you can lower the target's defense by 2, which effectively turns it into a super effective hit. Or if you go down, that means your opponent is now very frail, easy to get picked off, or they have to force a switch or something like that. And then we also have Stealth Rocks. I mean, Focus Sash, Stealth Rocks. Like, you throw out the Stealth Rocks, you take a hit, you reversal, you go for the big damage. Now you have Stealth Rocks and some damage down, and because you're fast, I guess you can call that fairly somewhat reliable on the Dugtrio. That's about the most that we're going to get out of Dugtrio right here. Then there's also the Memento. So people run Memento as like the extreme Screech. Screech is kind of anticipating that your opponent's going for setup and you're wanting to whittle them down, then hitting them with like really powerful hits and then trying to convert a KO off of the Screech, then using Screech as kind of like a parting shot. But with Memento, it's the more extreme version. You just straight up kill yourself. So pretty much you run the Stealth Rock into the Memento, and then you have damage options just in case you can find a KO with the Earthquake or the Reversal. So that's when you get rid of the Stone Edge, and then you run the Memento. So set up and then weakening your opponent and trying to turn that into some kind of advantage. That they switch because they're Mementoed, well, they take free Stealth Rock damage and a hit. That could be a KO right there. If they stay in on the Memento, well, then that means they can't really do anything. So that means you get free setup or free KO in return. And then the Arena Trap. Like, that's just what makes Dugtrio work really well. That if you see a Pokemon, you can come in and trap. If they are choiced into an electric move, Dugtrio beats them. Just 100%. That, okay, Arena Trap. Now you can't switch. Now you're using a useless move. So Dugtrio does have a little bit of an advantage right there with that Arena Trap. Or you just lead with Dugtrio and then you make sure, hey, you're getting Stealth Rock, you're getting Memento. If they go for setup, you can always switch out. Like, you can switch out and they're still trapped in for that turn. So Stealth Rock, switch out. If they don't have any entry hazards, you can bring in Dugtrio at another time and try to make the most out of its usefulness. So depending on how the opponent's playing, if you get really good reads, Dugtrio will be a pretty solid Pokemon. Then there's also the Bulldoze. You can run that pretty much. You just use it, a little bit of damage, reduces Pokemon speed by 1, and then that gives you a lot more options for a Pokemon that can come in and revenge for the Dugtrio. Now, looking at the damage calculations, it's always going to be the same, that if Dugtrio is here or Alolan Dugtrio, they all have a 100 attack. Remember, it's just a speed difference. So Dugtrio or Alolan Dugtrio into the circuitry, going to be an interesting matchup. Remember, you're looking for Pokemon that want to scarf an electric type hit, and then you can trap them in. Now, Alolan Dugtrio doesn't get the trap, so that's going to be a bit of an issue right there. But it's kind of showing that the neutral matchup is interesting. Modest Scarf with Hidden Power Ice will take out the regular Dugtrio, but regular Dugtrio against a Scarf or something that gets the advantage will also be able to KO Xurkitree with that Earthquake. Looking at some other Pokemon that we can throw down as well, the Nil Ego, it has a very low defensive stat, so that's going to be a very free Earthquake KO, also the Rock Poison typing. So there's going to be certain Pokemon that you can outspeed and then just abuse and exploit on that super effective hit right there. Magnezone is going to be another Pokemon that's in that same boat of eats way too much damage off a super effective hit, but if you catch it at the right time, then that's when you can just blow it up or straight up outspeed it if it's not running the Scarf. Then we have the Alolan Dugtrio. So I was looking into Tapu Lele, I was looking into Sylveon, and it kind of gets weird because, yeah, we do get the outspeed, and we do get the KO, and against Fairy-type Pokemon, we resist them. So that's kind of like the benefit of the Steel typing right there, but we don't just straight up get to one-hit KO them. That it's pretty much, we outspeed Iron Head, we tank up a hit because they don't really have too many options, unless it's like Hidden Power Ground Sylveon, but you know, it just really depends on what the opponent's running right there. On that, you know, Iron Head right here, not going to be enough to KO. So that kind of shows that maybe the Life Orb on the Alolan Dugtrio is more what we're looking for, but then that still leads into issues because Life Orb is only good for a super effective hit. That's kind of how underwhelming the 100 attack is with a low-ish base power move like the Iron Head. It's only 80, it's only getting stabbed, so a super effective Life Orb is what we're looking for to start finding KOs. Against neutral hits, it's not really going to work. You take Life Orb damage, they just kill you, or they just outspeed and then kill you. So it's going to be pretty tricky to get the Dugtrio in on the right situation right there. If they use a physical move that makes contact to finish you off, maybe you get a little bit of usage out of that. It's like, okay, Stealth Rocks, take the hit, they get slowed, or you get a little bit of damage, they get slowed, and then that can kind of bounce it back into your favor. But at least with Dugtrio, that if it lines up, you're going to be pretty solid. So really, if anything, we just get to see that Dugtrio is going to be a fast Earthquake machine, and maybe a super effective machine if it's landing like reversals and stone edges. So it's slight utility, and then it just hopes it gets the right Earthquake options. So one good thing is that it does 2-hit KO the Toxapex with a full defensive setup. Now, even without defensive investment, it's still a 2-hit KO, so that doesn't really change much right there. That we're not going to be able to blow up very dedicated tanks with these super effective hits, but it does show that we can get something out of it, which is pretty nice. But Toxapex has a lot of damage in return, which is pretty bad. And then lastly, just showing the Weavile. So ignoring that Weavile outspeeds and absolutely wrecks us, just kind of looking into a frail-ish or the average sweeping Pokemon, we just 2-hit KO it. That's kind of it. So it kind of shows Focus Sash does find good neutral conversions as well. If you're trading setup, you know, they Stealth Rocks you, you Stealth Rocks them, you outspeed Earthquake, Earthquake, you outspeed again, you Earthquake. It's kind of like having a Scarf Pokemon doing reduced damage, because when you're running Scarf, you know, you don't have any kind of damage boosting right there, but you're just trying to find the speed. So you have speed, you don't have damage, you hope you can 2-hit KO, you outspeed the new Pokemon that comes in, and then that's going to be good right there. However, Dugtrio, very susceptible to Priority Revenge, and just kind of lays down some damage. So that's kind of a look into the Dugtrio and the Alolan Dugtrio. Unfortunately, just Alolan Dugtrio, it loses that speed, and it loses like some weird matchups. You know, regular Dugtrio, it wins against Salazzle, but Alolan Dugtrio, it's too slow now, and then it doesn't win against the Salazzle. So just some weird situations that these Pokemon can find themselves in. Dugtrio, very frail, fast, good utility, can work in singles, can work in doubles. I think Alolan Dugtrio just kind of got boned, so this became a Dugtrio guide for the 7th generation. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.